Hey YA nerds, it's Kaye again with another book review for you guys. Like I said in my past reviews, I'm going to try to upload these once a week since there's not really much else to do during quarantine, and it's kind of the perfect opportunity for me to get back into doing all of these videos. And I've just been reviewing the hoard of the hoard of books that I have in my room, which turns out to be really good. I have like another 12 just off of my bookcase that's over there. I went through them today with my little sister, and she was like, "You can review all of these. They're all YA books." And I went, "I know, that's all I read." I also still have 10 books from the library that I borrowed on the last day that I was there. I sanitized all of them before I brought them in my house, but it was also 3 weeks ago, so even if there was something on them, I should be fine to read them now. I'm almost done with Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare right now, and as you guys may know from my other videos, I'm kind of obsessed with the Shadowhunters series. If you can hear any background noise, it's coming from downstairs because I decided to do this right before dinner. And there's all my explaining out of the way. So for today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite books. I think I'm just going to keep doing my favorite books, and I'll make them a playlist called Kaye's Favorite Books and just go with it. So one of my other favorite books, aside from A Wrinkle in Time, is actually The Perks of Being a Wallflower. This book came out in 1999 in February, so it is over 20 years old, which I think is crazy to me because I don't feel over 20 years old, and I read this almost right after it came out. That's not true. I read it in the early 2000s. I've loved this book for a really long time. First of all, it's only 213 pages, which is like nothing. That's nothing to me. That's an afternoon if I'm like really going at it. I also really like the format of the book. It's told in letters from Charlie, who's the main character. He is a very interesting young man, a very troubled young man, and as you read the story, you kind of learn more about him. I also really enjoyed the movie. The movie was really good adaptation, in my opinion. I have a lot of opinions about like book adaptations into movies. Most of the time I hate them, like the most recent Wrinkle in Time movie, but this is really well done. I think it helps that the author is the director and the screenwriter for this, so he kind of had like all of the say in what happened in the movie, and there are a lot of differences between these two products. Specifically in the book, Charlie and his two friends, Sam and Patrick, are heavy chain smokers in this book, and there is an abortion in this book, which when I read it, I was like, what? Because I was a teenager, and you didn't read books like this when you were a teenager. They didn't exist when I was a teenager. Now they do, and it's fantastic. But in the movie, they don't really cover that because there is a lot to cover about just Charlie himself without having a lot of like the background stuff. So for instance, they don't smoke. They do still do drugs in the movie, which teenagers. But there's nothing about the abortion. There is something about Charlie's older sister being hit by her boyfriend, which happens in the book too. So there are a lot of, I think it was well adapted. I think they did a really good job. And the movie came out in 2012, which doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was. And I saw it in theaters and I just loved it. I expected to hate it. I went in like, well, they're adapting one of my favorite books and we'll see. And I loved it, obviously, since I own it on Blu-ray. The other reason I'm doing a review of this particular book, aside from the fact that it is on my shelf and I love it, is I just found out today that it's actually streaming on Netflix. So if you want to read the book in an afternoon, or 2 or 3 if you want to take your time, you could do that and then watch the movie and compare them for yourselves and let me know what you think in the comments. Or if you've already read and watched, let me know anyway. I am always looking forward to having some kind of discussion about these books. Nobody's really taken me up on that offer yet, aside from like my friends that I send these videos to who are like, oh my god, you loved that book, me too, and then we talk about it for 10 minutes and then it's over. I'm a librarian. I want to talk about books, man. So yeah, let me know what you think. If you're gonna watch the movie, just let me know if you loved it or hated it, if you liked the way that they adapted it or not, and we can talk about it. So the plot of this book is a little complicated. because it is told through a narrator who we don't really know is reliable or not. Charlie is the only, like, character in the story that we hear from. We don't hear the other sides of the story from anyone else. And so Charlie he's the protagonist. And at the beginning of the book, he is just about to start his freshman year at high school. And he is nervous about this. Rightfully so. Freshmen in the 90s and even today get bullied a lot when they first enter high school. I did not have that experience. My high school's weird, and they put their 9th graders in a completely separate building from the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So we never had, like, freshman bullying. It just wasn't a thing. They had sophomore bullying, but it still wasn't the same. And so Charlie has 2 older siblings who kind of are, like, trying to coach him through, like, how to be normal in high school, but he has a lot of trauma. And that is the best word for what Charlie has. And so the way that the book is formatted in its, letter form, he's writing to a friend. And it does say that. It says, "Dear friend" at the top. And I think he's writing to this friend as kind of like a way to, like, get everything off his chest. He even says in the beginning, and they quoted in the movie too, which I loved, "Dear friend, I'm writing to you because she said you listen and understand and didn't try to sleep with that person at that party even though you could have. Please don't try to figure out who she is because then you might figure out who I am, and I really don't want you to do that. I will call people by different names or generic names because I don't want you to find me. I didn't enclose a return address for the same reason. I mean nothing bad by this, honest." So he's writing to this anonymous person who we will never meet. We don't even know if Charlie is his real name. We don't even know if Sam and Patrick have real names or if those are their real names. He says he's changing everybody's names in the book. And I think that makes the story fascinating and also adaptable to anyone. So we follow Charlie all through his first year of high school in the book. And he does a lot of things. He experiments with drugs. He makes friends with people. He helps his older sister out when she's in trouble. And he's just genuinely, like, a good kid. But you do notice that he puts literally everyone ahead of his own, like, needs. He puts everyone's needs ahead of his own. And I think when I read this in high school, I was doing the same thing. So it's like another one of those books that came along at, like, the exact right moment in my life. That happens to me a lot. I think that's why I'm a librarian and I love books so much, is that they just happen to, like, come along at the right time. And this is one of those books. So, yeah, it's a really good book. I don't want to spoil anything by telling you anything else that happens, because I think in this book specifically, the way it's written as letters, you are experiencing things at the same time that his friend is. And so, I think you should just read it and find out what happens to Charlie. He does get better, but a lot of bad things happen to him, and it's fantastic. I don't have a lot of tropes for this book because of the way it was written. It's kind of hard to assign tropes to, like, a lot of realistic fiction books. A lot of the tropes I have are, like, joke tropes anyway. And as I've said before, these are, like, all things that I've made up or I found on other websites or I've heard from other librarians. So for the tropes of this one, the first one is wrecking ball endings, clueless adults, only one friend in the world, buried memories, and having Bianca for your sister. All of those I will explain down in the description. It is just easier for me to just type them all out there than have to worry about putting them on the screen or anything else like that. And I do have to change the definition of having Bianca for your sister, because that is a 10 Things I Hate About You reference. And in that, the reference is basically like your younger sister is hotter or better than you. And in this regard, concerning Charlie, it's really his older sister who is hotter or better than him. She's just more popular than him. It's just saying, like, your siblings are more popular than you and you're a loser. So, that's it for the tropes. So, I got 4 Readalikes for this book. It wasn't hard because this book has been around for so long. It's very easy to connect other books to it. And so a lot of the Readalikes that I got were based on the fact that this is like a realistic fiction book. It's a coming of age story. It's about a loner in high school. And we do have a lot of books that are coming out like this. It's also about friendship and, you know, finding your place in this world. And so again, there's like a ton of books written about this. I think this was one of the first YA books that it was published as an adult book. It's technically a YA book. It's really complicated. The 90s were such a weird time for like YA. It didn't really exist as a genre. And I want to do a video about like the history of YA. I'm sure there are 1,000 of them already on Facebook. Wow, already on YouTube. But I think it would be interesting for me to like explore that as well. And so Chbosky, who's the author, which I probably should have said at the beginning of this video, sorry. He was kind of like one of the first ones who like started doing this. A lot of YA books were kind of relegated to children's books at the time. So you have like a lot of really interesting books that came out that are designated like juvenile children, but they're really for teenagers. Anyway, so I have 2 Readalikes from Goodreads like usual, and I have 2 Readalikes from Novelist as usual. And so Goodreads told me about Looking for Alaska from John Green, which I don't really like that book, but I can see why it would be recommended. And also Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell, which is on my reading list. I haven't gotten to it yet. I want to read it. I love Rainbow Rowell. She's fantastic. I just haven't gotten to a lot of her prose books, but I've read some of her comics. Pumpkinheads she did, which was fantastic. I'd love to review that. Oh, I have a ton of comics to review. Sorry. And I've heard really good things about that book, specifically that it's also set in the 90s. I think that helps it relate to Perks of Being a Wallflower. It's about 2 like loners finding each other and being together, and I think it also either has a movie coming out or the movie already came out. One or the other. It's a pretty good book from what I've heard. As for Novelist, they recommended to me The Infinite in Between by Carolyn Mackler and Every Exquisite Thing by Matthew Quick. The Carolyn Mackler book I think is written in letters, kind of like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, but they are both also about young teenagers coming of age, finding friends, navigating high school. So any of those books would be good if you really liked Perks. And if you like any of those books, you might like Perks as well. Either way, I recommend Perks. Again, it's a quick book and really well done, and it is one of the first big YA books that we've ever had, so. Oh hey, it's everyone's favorite part, where I give a 10 out of 10 out of the books that I keep giving 10s out of 10s for. I read good books. I should just get rid of the rating system. There's like no point in me rating books because I always give it a 10 out of 10. I will rate the movie. I'll give you the movie. Okay, so 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Because, no, 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Because still fantastic. Not as good as this. So that's all I have to say about this. This video is kind of going on really long. I'm sorry, I got really rambly. I'm so lonely. This is the only interaction I have right now. But yeah, look forward to seeing another video. I'm going to try to keep updating every Thursday. And I guess that's all I really have to say about The Perks of Being a Wallflower. If you read it, if you love it, if you've never heard of it, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to talk to more people. And I guess that's all I have to say. So this is Kaye Reads a Lot, and peace out, YA nerds.